Hey guys. Okay, so on the weekend I put a post up that talked about the fact that the state government is proposing to change some of the granny flat rules. Now, within that post, I kind of alluded to the fact that I personally think that a lack of education and hence awareness and understanding of what town planning is and the town planning rules and all of that sort of stuff out there leads people to naturally fear and therefore fight development. Now, that inevitably forces policymakers' hands to be tied. They're kind of limited in terms of what decisions they can make and what outcomes they can achieve and all of that sort of stuff. So anyway, I was following that post, looking at some of the comments coming through, and I was like, you know what? I need to walk the talk here. I need to do my little bit to try and help spread some awareness and understanding of what factors are contributing to this issue right here, right now, so that I can hopefully, what's the word I'm looking for? Not disarm, deflate, basically take the heat out of some of this conversation and try and have a more or encourage a more productive or positive conversation going forward. So what am I going to talk about here? Well, I think we need to start the conversation or start bring some awareness as to what the housing affordability issue is at the moment, what's driving it or what's generating it, and then in turn, what some of the town planning solutions are that we can consider the pros and cons of all those solutions. Now, that is a lot to talk about within one video. So I've ummed and ahed about it over the last day or so, and I've gone, you know what? I think I'm going to have to split it up. I'm going to have to do a two-part video series. So today we're going to look at what the actual issue is and what some of the factors are that I'm personally seeing as a town planner are driving this issue. And then next week we'll sit down and look at, okay, what are some of the town planning issues or solutions, I should say, and like I said, pros and cons, why they work, why they don't work, and all of that sort of stuff, to hopefully promote a more positive conversation and productive conversation going forward. So firstly, let's start. I have written a few notes down here because I was like, I want to make sure I get all of this across. I don't want to watch this video back later and go, oh, damn, I missed that point. That was a key point. It'll drive me insane. So I will keep referring to my notes. But the first thing I want to say is I personally, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I was living in a little bit of a bubble when it came to the housing affordability stuff. Sure, I've heard all the media rhetoric out there and the comments about the fact that we're like producing, and don't quote me on these numbers, but we're producing like 400,000 houses a year in Brisbane or Queensland, whatever it is, and our demand is 800,000. Like we're hitting 50% of where we need to be type thing. So I'd heard all of those stats out there, but it wasn't really sinking in until about 2 weeks ago. So I had two separate situations or scenarios play out that just really brought it to the forefront of my attention. So the first one, I was having a chat to someone and she basically said that her and her partner had split. So they were looking to basically end their lease agreement, move out, find separate accommodation. Now, these guys both earn really good incomes, but she'd been rejected from, I think it was between 40 and 45 different properties. And the last two inspections that she'd turned up to had between 20 and 30 people applying. And these people ranged from young people through to middle-aged couples, through to elderly people. Like there was just this massive, broad range of people turning up to these properties. Almost 45 properties she'd been rejected from. I was like, damn, that's heartbreaking. Like, how do you do that each day? To boot, she said she just found out that as an individual, and don't quote me on this because it's coming secondhand, but as an individual, she now needed to find a personal guarantor to be able to guarantee that she could pay the rent. So she, as basically going out on her own, she needed to go to approach her brother and say, yo bro, can you help me out here? Can you spot me? Can you say that you will cover me if I ever fall behind in my rent? The problem was her brother's about to go overseas to serve in the army. So yeah, he's not going to be contactable in 2 weeks' time. So she was like, I've got this 2-week deadline to find a property. And if it happens after that, he can't guarantor me. And suddenly I fall to the bottom of the list behind everyone else. I was like, man, that stress, that pressure. I don't want to be you right now. Anyway, the second scenario was basically about 3 weeks ago, got a phone call from a friend and she said, okay, look, the place where I'm staying, they're looking to sell the property. It's going to market in 4 weeks' time. Didn't see this coming. I've got to get out and I don't have any options. Is there any chance I can move in with you? I was like, oh, I haven't done the share house thing in a very, very long time, like my uni days long time. Yeah, okay, I can suck this up, I can do this. So she planned to move in. Anyway, fast forward a few days later, I get another phone call from her and she's like, yeah, so got a favour to ask. My sister, she's in the same situation. Any chance she can move in with me? Like she can share the same bed as me until she finds somewhere else. We can share in the same room. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't want to do that, guys. Like I can clear out my storage room. She can stay in there on a blow-up mattress as long as she's fine with me coming, going, getting my stuff out of there. We'll make this work. So yeah, suddenly this whole affordability and housing issue out there, the lack of rental properties, the lack of houses, all of that sort of stuff has hit me in the face. And I'm hyper aware and hypersensitive. Not obviously as much as a lot of people out there are physically going through it, but I'm a lot more aware than I was. I'm no longer living in that little naive bubble, and I have a better appreciation and understanding as to what the issues are out there and how it's affecting a lot of people. So that naturally then comes to our list here. What is generating or causing this? Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here. I'm not going to suggest for 1 second that I'm going to cover all the issues off when it comes to the reasons why, but I'm just going to give you a summary or rundown as to what I'm seeing as a town planner. And at the end of the day, it comes to supply demand 101. So basically the demand is going up and the supply is going down. So we're increasing the gap between those two metrics. So first and foremost, and this has been going on forever, population growth. So I did a quick Google search before, and it said that basically our population here within Brisbane has gone up. I think it was 1.35% last year, and I think the year before it was maybe 1.4% or something like that. Don't quote me on the figures, but basically our population, it's not going up skyrocketing, but it's going up gradually more and more and more. So our demand for housing is naturally going to go up more and more and more. Now, next thing, and I'm going to first start, I should have said this before, I'm going to start by looking to the past. So some of the things that have been tracking or causing issues for a while now. Then we're going to focus on the things that have kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, basically escalated it and stuck it up straight up in recent times. And then we're going to look to some of the future issues. So yeah, population growth, been happening for a while, but it's still a major issue to consider. Next, from a town planning perspective, the SEQ regional plan. So back in, I think it was like 2005, state government introduced this new legislation, and in super simple terms, the purpose of that legislation, in one part, was to prevent urban sprawl, to stop Brisbane from merging to the Gold Coast, from merging to the Sunshine Coast, and from us becoming just one big urban blob. So what they did essentially is they put these pink little circles, they're not circles, but indicatively circles, around Brisbane, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. And they put like a green belt in between each one. And they basically said no more development outside of the pink. And I am really simplifying this here, but basically no more development outside of the pink areas. So the rules now prohibit the lodgement of applications to subdivide outside of the pink areas where you're creating lots that are less than 100 hectares. Sorry, someone's walking past, just distracted me for a second there. So yeah, basically you need 200 hectare site before you can do any subdivision. Now your mind's probably going to sit there and go, that's the rural areas, that's not a big deal. We get inquiries for properties literally every day in like Brookfield, Pullen Vale, Kenmore Hills, all of those sort of areas. So areas which are semi in the city, like yes, sure, they're 15 minutes drive from the city, but they're close to the city. And these areas, whenever I hear those suburbs, the very first thing I do is go, where are you sitting? Are you in the urban footprint pink area or are you outside the pink area? Because those state rules will instantly dismiss any subdivision potential. So you need to look at it. So basically what that legislation did is it put a limit on where we could expand into. It basically said all development needs to be within this area here and you can't go beyond that. So that obviously reduced the amount of land we had to be able to develop. Next, purpose of this video, I'm talking about a lack of education and awareness and information out there. People they go down these rabbit warrens or rabbit holes on social media and become very fearful of what development can do. They start getting very vocal without having the full picture or the full story. And I am generalizing here. But yeah, most of the time they don't have the full story. They drum up a lot of panic and fear, and the policymakers are forced to address or acknowledge that fear and make planning decisions based on that. So naturally, as people become more vocal and we start to have more communication going through sources like Facebook and all of that sort of stuff, people are starting to have more control and input into the way planning decisions are made, which is naturally limiting how much development can occur across the city. Next, short-term accommodation, Airbnb. I did a video on this like a year or two ago. Most people are often surprised to find that the majority, well, I personally believe the majority of short-term accommodation out there is not lawful. So you can have one room rented out under the home business provisions, that's all good. In high density residential zone areas, different story. But when it comes to those residential housey sort of areas like low density residential, character residential, all of that sort of stuff, generally speaking, you can't do short-term accommodation where you rent out the entire house. But naturally, it's the whole boom of the gig economy, all those sort of online sources, all of those options. We've seen a lot of properties converted to Airbnb, short-term accommodation, because you get more money through that than you do through the long-term rental market. So that has taken a lot of properties off the market for the long-term renters. So yeah, a house that previously may have gone to a university student or something like that, or a young couple, is now being put out there for holiday rentals and all that sort of stuff, which means we've got less houses to be able to choose from, to be able to rent and all that sort of stuff. Next, high development costs. Everyone always thinks that developers make a bucket load of money. Hate to break it to you, but very few developers make a bucket load of money. It's the good ones that are really educated, knowledgeable, have put the effort into understanding the process, do the feasibility, all of that stuff. They make the money at the end of the day. The mum and dad developers out there very rarely make a lot of money. And to put it in perspective, I always say to people to do a standard 1 into 2 lot subdivision these days within Brisbane, and I'm talking stock standard, you need at least 100 grand. I was talking to a couple yesterday at Toowong, no, it was Paddington, sorry, about this. They're like, oh, we're thinking of potentially subdividing. I'm like, yeah, okay, let me squash that one right up front. 100 grand, guys. And they're like, what do you mean? 30 grand in infrastructure charges up front. So that goes towards the additional or going to basically maintaining and upgrading sewage pump stations, water treatment plants, all of that sort of stuff. So as you increase the number of people living in areas, you've got to increase the amount of money going into that infrastructure. You naturally need to contribute to it. So yeah, 30 grand up front. So everyone thinks, oh, it's so easy and quick to make money through development. No, it costs a bucket load of money. And as prices and all that sort of stuff increase, it becomes harder and harder to make money through development. So there is less incentive for people to go and actually do developments. Next, land more constrained. So we always joke within the industry that all the easy sites are gone. The reality is that everyone goes for the more profitable, straightforward jobs, and then naturally what's left becomes the more constrained sort of land. So the more flood-affected land, the land with protected vegetation, all of that sort of stuff. So it's the land that's harder to develop, which means we've got less opportunities to go and do new developments, increase densities, all of that sort of stuff. The land that we've got to choose from, the pool of land we've got to choose from becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and costs go up and up, which makes it harder and harder. So that's kind of looking backwards to the historical factors that have played in increasing our demand and reducing the ability for us to create houses. One that's kind of falls into both camps, so it's kind of a looking back thing and also looking to the now thing, is household size. So back to the day, like I think back to the early 1900s, like 1911, 10, all those sort of time periods, everyone was happy to cram into a bedroom. You had people crammed into verandas or sunrooms in the hot days because you didn't have the fans and electricity and all that sort of stuff. Everyone was happy to be up in everyone's business. These days, every kid wants an ensuite off their bedroom. Like everyone wants their personal space. So the amount of people that we're fitting into houses over time has naturally decreased. COVID kind of put that on steroids. So everyone was like, hold on a sec, I don't want to have all these people around me spreading germs and all the virus and all that sort of stuff. And also, hold on a sec, if I'm going to have to go into isolation for a week, I don't really want to be living up in everyone's business. I want personal space. And hold on a sec, I now want to work from home. I need a space to work from home. That bedroom, which I was going to rent out or I was renting out, sorry, it's now my home office. So yeah, like I said, we've been naturally over time decreasing our household size, the number of people living within houses. But COVID put it on steroids and suddenly it basically increased the demand for the number of houses we need out there. Now, let's look to COVID, the C word. COVID obviously changed the game. Firstly, migration. I don't know what the stats are off the top of my head, but if you Google it, you will quite easily see that during COVID, as soon as the borders opened up, the migration rates from Sydney and Melbourne to Brisbane through the roof, or Sunshine Coast through the roof. Basically everyone came up here, and people down south typically have higher wages, higher income, all of that sort of stuff, so they have more money to spend, so it pushed the prices up. Next, COVID and war price increases. Now, I did a series of videos on this earlier this year, so I won't go into all those factors. What I would just say is prices went up. Across the board, it was like 30, 40% in some situations. We're predicting another 10 to 15% in the next year that's going to go up. Basically, all of those COVID and war factors have come together and increased the price of construction, which obviously stops or slows the amount of houses hitting the market, the amount of builders out there that are wanting to build houses, all of that sort of stuff. Labour shortages. And again, I've talked about this in a previous video. I think it was the construction pricing one. we naturally as society, as the younger generations coming through, I feel so old saying that, when the younger generations, but yeah, when people are coming through, they're favouring more office jobs. People don't want to go and get their hands dirty as much as they did in the past. So as a result, we're seeing less people hitting the construction sort of market. So less people becoming chippies, less people becoming tilers, all of that sort of stuff. So again, it pushes prices up and it reduces the amount of people out there that are physically available to build these houses. Next is COVID savings boosts. So let's be honest, the middle income earners and the high income earners, those of us that were able to continue to work during those COVID lockdowns, most of us saw an increase in the amount of money coming in the door. Most of us chose to put that into savings because we weren't traveling the world, we weren't doing all that extra stuff we were previously, and we're a little bit more conservative because we didn't know what the future was going to hold. I'm going to be honest, this last quarter for us, the biggest quarter on record by far. Why? Well, my current theory is that there's a lot of people out there that have been saving their money up and now they're sitting there going, oh, builders are starting to have a bit of a hard time, aren't they? We're hearing stories of builders going under. Prices are going to have to drop, right? Because everyone's desperate. Interest rates are going up. They're going to have to start to fire sale. Well, now's a good time. Let's do it. So all these people who had the savings behind them, who aren't suffering the financial stress, are going, great, renovation boom. And like I said, that's flowing through to people like myself in the construction industry, which are just seeing our workload go like that. It is ridiculous out there at the moment and people aren't talking about it, but yeah, there is a massive boom that's going on. I lost my track. Where was I going? COVID savings boost. Yeah, so basically there's a massive boom going on, which is in renovations and all that sort of stuff. Next, floods. Earlier this year, Brisbane obviously flooded. We have seen, I think we've got something like 10 jobs on the go at the moment for flood affected properties. And I would suggest probably 90% of those people are currently not living in their house. So we've got all these empty properties out there in those flood affected suburbs which aren't being utilised. And those people have been forced to go out and rent other properties and compete with people that would have previously been in that rental market. So now we look to the future. Olympics. Like COVID, Olympics is going to drive migration here. It's going to drive demand for housing and all of that sort of stuff. It's going to put a lot of pressure on resources. So a lot of the existing labour force and materials are going to be pulled sideways to pump into infrastructure projects, which means we're going to compete with the houses that are trying to hit the market and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is a long video. I'm glad I didn't try and condense all the other stuff into this one. But yeah, basically what it comes down to at the end of the day is the demand is increasing and the production is decreasing, and as a result that gap is increasing, which is forcing those scenarios like I talked about with the person first up that's faced 45 or just under 45 rejections and 20 to 30 people turning up to inspections fighting for the same property, or my friend and her sister currently camping out in my house because they can't get a property. So, interesting times, right? So, like I said, next week, what I want to cover off is some of the town planning solutions or options or ideas out there and the pros and cons of each one of those. So we can start to foster a more productive conversation, which leads to my final point. Please, please, please don't use this video as an opportunity to rant and rave in a negative way about all the problems out there and how bad the government's doing and blah, blah, blah. I personally wouldn't want to be in their shoes trying to write this legislation and come up with these solutions. I couldn't do it, so I can't blame them for it. I want to welcome, I want to welcome comments about the issues. So in terms of basically, what am I trying to say here? I want people to add their 2 cents as to what they think is contributing to the problem. Because like I said at the very beginning, the list I've scribbled down here is just a snapshot of the issues. So I do want to encourage people to put more comments out there as to what's causing this problem. And then next week when I do that next video, I want to encourage people to talk about the pros and cons of the options I put out there and some other alternative options. But I don't want you to negatively just slag on everyone. If you don't have a solution or if you don't have a better idea, maybe just zip it. Just gonna say. Okay, I think that's enough rambling for me today. As I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3. What was my number 3? Oh, yeah. The views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.